Welcome City Council of Petoskey for the March 18th, 2024 City Council of Petoskey City Council. Would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Beth, please call roll.
Demore, present. Shields,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Walker, present. Murphy.
Present. We have a quorum. Next is the proclamation that I wish to read. And it's declaring the month of April to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month, requested by the Women's Resource Center. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is recognized nationally each April to raise awareness about the prevalence and impact of sexual violence, and whereas sexual assault remains prevalent in 1 in 4 females and 1 in 26 males have experienced completed or attempted rape in this country. And whereas the community across the nation, including our rural area, play a crucial part in fostering environments that are safe, supportive, and connected. And whereas the strength of our community lies in these bonds that we share, and by creating stronger connections, we can work collaboratively to reduce the likelihood of sexual violence. And whereas the residents of our community deserve to live in an environment that values empathy, understanding, and support of survivors of sexual violence. And whereas recognizing the importance of addressing sexual assault and creating a safer community requires collective efforts from individuals, organizations, and local leaderships. Therefore, I, John Murphy, Mayor of Petoskey, do proclaim April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in our city of Petoskey. I urge community members, organizations, and businesses to join in raising awareness, cultivating stronger community connections, and working towards the prevention of sexual assault. Together, we can create a community where everyone will feel safe, respected, and supported. Thank you. I will give one public announcement, and that's if you think you want to come here tonight and pick on city council, you probably picked the wrong night, okay? Or wait until they exit. How's that? Next, we have a presentation that's to hear from Public Safety Director Rocky Carr concerning the department's awards for meritorious actions. Officer Carr, Public Safety Director.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council, for having us. What we're going to do tonight is we have a Public Safety Honors Board of Review, and we meet once a year that review requests for recognition of meritorious service and action. And what's really neat about this is these requests are submitted by our fellow personnel, our fellow officers, wanting recognition for other officers that have done an outstanding job, and in which we review each submission, and we have come up with a dozen tonight that we are going to present awards to. So with that said, since we do have a dozen, we're going to get moving right into it. Hopefully you appreciate that. So Lieutenant Troxel, if you could come up here, and when I call your name, please come forward and stand while I read the details surrounding the incident that took place. First is a unit citation, which can be presented to officers Will Bowen, Hunter Arnold, and Connor Kish. On January 2nd, 2023, officers Bowen, Arnold, and Kish were nearing the end of their shift after working the holiday weekend. They were performing road patrol duties when PSO Arnold observed the vehicle driving poorly, nearly striking parked vehicles and curbs. PSO Arnold alerted Officer Kish and Field Training Officer Bowen of these observations. PSO Kish conducted a traffic stop on the suspect vehicle. The stop led to the arrest of a driver for operating under the influence of narcotics and possession of methamphetamine. The follow-up investigation revealed 2 children, a 2-month-old and a 5-year-old, were left in an apartment unsupervised. These findings led to joint investigation with the Department of Health and Human Services. The children were taken to a safe location where they could be properly cared. It was also later learned that the vehicle involved had been taken without permission. Additional charges were requested for child neglect and unlawful driving away of an automobile. PSO Bowen, Arnold, and Kish should be commended for their dedication to enforcing the laws and taking appropriate action to take a drug-impaired driver off the roadway, for the follow-through investigative skills which resulted in the protection of children. These officers are awarded a unit citation. Next is a public safety citation, and this is awarded to Officer Lawrence Donovan. On March 21st, 2023, at approximately 5:30 a.m., Officer Donovan was off duty in his personal vehicle on Horton Bay Road. In the dark morning hours, Officer Donovan noticed a glow coming from the backyard of a residence on Resort Pike Road. Based on experience, Officer Donovan recognized the glow to be consistent with a large structure fire. Officer Donovan investigated the glow and found that a large chicken coop at a residence had caught fire and was fully involved. Officer Donovan stated there were several other vehicles traveling on the roadway at the time, and no one had taken the time or initiative to stop and investigate. Officer Donovan used his department-issued radio to call dispatch and request the Resort Bear Creek Fire Department to respond in order to handle the issue. Officer Donovan remained on scene and directed the responding fire apparatus to the emergency. Had it not been for Officer Donovan's willingness to act and investigate, the fire could have spread to other outbuildings or structures and caused more loss. For his efforts on this day, Officer Donovan is hereby awarded a public safety citation. Next is Officers Will Bowen, Hunter Arnold, and Connor Kish, along with dispatcher Kiara Zinowich. How about that? Probably the last time. And Talia LeCount. On April 2023, dispatchers Zenowich, LeCount, advised officers Bowen, Arnold, and Kish of an alarm at the Sweet Fire Tobacco Store on West Mitchell Street. Officers and dispatchers were aware of a previous break-in at the business earlier in the month. The dispatch information was quickly relayed to officers who responded priority. Upon arriving at the store, officers found the front window broken, and it appeared someone either gained entry or attempted to gain entry the same fashion as the early break-in. PSO Kish stood by the store to secure the scene and await additional officers. Knowing the suspect in the previous incident was on foot, Officer Bowen checked the area and quickly located the subject walking. Officer Bowen questioned him regarding the incident and determined he was most likely the person responsible. Officer Arnold assisted by drafting a search warrant for the residence of the suspect. Once authorized, the search warrant was executed on the suspect's residence, confirming suspicions that officers apprehended the responsible party. Central Dispatch employees Zenowich and LeCount immediately relayed pertinent information and officers responded priority accordingly. For those actions, the suspect was accountable for hundreds of dollars of theft and thousands of dollars of damage to the building. This team of employees is hereby awarded a unit citation. Next is Certificate of Merit. That's Officer Goziak and Deputy Donald Martin of the Emmett County Sheriff's Office. On August 15th, 2023, at approximately 4:08 p.m., officers were dispatched to a location just outside the city limits for a report of somebody hitting two girls. The dispatch information being relayed was difficult to process due to the complexity of the event taking place. The witness reported to dispatchers that the suspect had a cord around the victim's neck and was choking her. As the new information was gathered, PSOs determined this was a priority complaint and responded to assist the Emmett County Sheriff's Office. Upon hearing the sirens of responding units, the male suspect involved in the assaultive behavior fled the scene. Officer Goziak was able to get a visual on the suspect as he was fleeing, made contact with him along the US 31 bluff. The suspect continued to attempt to flee by jumping over the bluff as PSO Goziak grabbed hold of him. Both PSO Goziak and the suspect went over the embankment, sliding nearly 60 feet. Observing this action, Deputy Martin disregarded his own safety and willfully jumped over the bluff and down the embankment to assist Officer Goziak. During this fall, Officer Goziak severely injured his shoulder, causing him to be off work for several months. Despite his injury, Officer Goziak was able to maintain control of the subject throughout the entirety of the event. Officer Goziak and Deputy Martin put their safety of the public over the safety of themselves. This selfless act, they're hereby awarded Certificate of Merit. Yep. Life Savings Award. Officer Benjamin Carlson. On June 13th, 2023, at approximately 7:22 p.m., Central Dispatch reported an overdose at a business within the city of Petoskey. Officer Carlson responded and observed a female lying on the ground adjacent to a vehicle. The female was receiving chest compressions from an unknown Good Samaritan. The unconscious female had a waxy, cyanotic appearance. Through training and experience, Officer Carlson confirmed the emergency as a possible overdose. Officer Carlson administered a single dose, a 4 milligrams dose of naloxone or Narcan. At this time, Emmett County EMS arrived and took over the patient care. Officer Carlson checked for a pulse, and an easily palatable carotid pulse was noted, followed by chest rise. Officer Carlson's quick response, recognition of indicators provided a favorable outcome to an otherwise potentially fatal overdose. For his actions on this day, Officer Carlson is awarded a Life Savings Award. Next is the Life Savings Award awarded to PSO Lawrence Donovan. On August 20, 2023, Officer Donovan, with his wife traveling back from a vacation in the Upper Peninsula when they came upon an accident that had just occurred. The vehicle had been unable to navigate a curve and the driver lost control. The rear seat occupant, a female in her 20s, had been ejected and suffered minor injuries. A baby in a car seat that was restrained in the rear seat had suffered minor injuries. The driver and the front seat passenger were both still trapped in the upside down vehicle and seriously injured. Officer Donovan was off duty and used what life-saving equipment he had to attempt to stabilize the patients and await the arrival of local EMS and fire personnel. Once personnel from fire and EMS were on scene, Officer Donovan continued to assist with the extrication of the trapped patients. It was expected that all parties involved in the accident will survive their injuries. However, the outcome could have been drastically different had Officer Donovan not arrived on scene and began assisting in the process of rapid triage and treatment of all patients involved. For his actions on this day, Officer Donovan is hereby awarded a life savings award. Recipients of the Life Savings Award, Lieutenant David Schultz, PSO John Dutch, PSO Eric Hoig, EMT George Spainer, Paramedic Dustin Gabardine. On December 14th, 2023, at approximately 2:28 a.m., officers and emergency medical service were dispatched to a residence within the city for a report of a witness cardiac event. On arrival, the patient had no pulse and CPR was immediately started. Officers and EMS staff worked on the scene for over an hour to provide advanced life-saving cardiac care to the patient prior to transporting her to McLaren Northern Michigan Hospital. On January 5th, 2024, Lieutenant Schultz contacted the patient's husband, who was happy to report his wife is expected to make a full recovery after spending 14 days in a Grand Rapids intensive care unit. Thanks to the knowledge, training, and teamwork of all members on the scene, her life was saved. This team is hereby presented with a life savings award. Officer Frederick Helk. On February 3rd, 2023, officers were dispatched to McLean and Eakin Booksellers on East Lake Street in the city of Petoskey. Dispatch advised there was an unresponsive 86-year-old female in the business. Officer Helk performing field training officer duties prior to this call, responded and checked for a pulse, which he found to be weak and thready. Officer Helk attached an AED, which indicated no shock. Officer Helk performed 2 rounds of quality CPR and applied high flow oxygen. The patient became responsive and was transported to McLaren Northern Michigan Hospital for further advanced care. Officer Helk, a paramedic, reverted back to his training and experience and did not hesitate to act. Due to Officer Helk's action, the patient was provided an opportunity to fully recover. It should be noted the entire incident took 14 minutes. For his actions, Officer Helk is presented with a life savings award. Hold on. Public safety citation for Lieutenant Todd Troxel. He's unaware of this one. He did not approve it. Award for service to the line of duty that requires unusual thoroughness, conscientiousness, determination, and initiative in the performance of a difficult assignment. On April 2nd, 2023, the city of Sheboygan responded to a reported felonious assault with a firearm. During the incident, the suspect, who was armed with a shotgun, barricaded himself in a residence with a female and potentially 2 children. The Northern Michigan Mutual Aid Task Force was activated and requested to assist. As members arrived, the perimeter was set up along with REACT and negotiation teams. Lieutenant Troxel was the lead negotiator during the incident. This incident was subsequently resolved by Lieutenant Troxel and his negotiation team, de-escalating the situation for a peaceful surrender. The suspect was convinced to exit the residence and was taken into custody without further violence. Lieutenant Troxel is hereby awarded the public safety citation for utilizing his training and negotiation skills during this emotionally charged event. Next is Lieutenant David Schultz, Officer Carl Fritsch, Officer Eric Hoig, and Marty Flynn of the Petoskey Water Department Supervisor. On February 2023, Petoskey Department of Public Safety received notice that our 5-year insurance service office, the ISO rating, was once again up for review. The date for said review was determined to be April 26, 2023. Lieutenant Schultz supervised the process as officers Fritz and Hoig did the majority of the heavy lifting. This process is extremely painstaking and calls for attention to detail as well as the ability to produce records from many different aspects of our fire-oriented responsibilities. Water Department Supervisor Marty Flynn was a crucial member of this process. Marty was able to produce up-to-date hydrant pressures throughout the city as well as answer water supply and demand concerns. Marty was instrumental in explaining how pressures can be diverted to different locations within the city if an emergency requiring this pressure increase were to occur. The impact of the numerous hours spent gathering the necessary data resulted in a reduction of the city's ISO rating from a 4 to a 3. The work by this team, along with the dedication of all public safety staff, will directly impact the citizens of Petoskey by potentially lowering their insurance premiums for homeowners. Due to the aforementioned efforts, these members are hereby awarded a public safety citation. Two more remaining. Hang in there. The next is the Chief's Award. It's awarded by the Chief to citizens whose actions merit recognition for their service to the department and community. And this award is going to Sean Dempsey, Terry Barrett, and Leah Schrillinger. And I believe 2 of them could not make it tonight. So Sean, you get to be the recipient of all the attention. On August 2025 at approximately 2:27 p.m., dispatch received a report of a woman who appeared to be in mental distress on the Bridge Street Bear River Bridge. The caller advised dispatch the woman was crying while standing on the opposite side of the railing and appeared to be preparing to jump. Petoskey Public Safety Officers Bowen and Donovan quickly responded to the scene as well as MSP Trooper Duff. The 911 caller for this incident was Sean Dempsey. Mr. Dempsey was able to keep dispatch updated on the rapidly developing situation. As the situation continued to escalate, Mr. Dempsey informed dispatch the woman was kneeling on the railing and there was someone with their arm around her. The person holding onto the female was Terry Barrett, City of Petoskey's Department of Public Works Supervisor. Mr. Barrett attempted to talk the young woman into coming back over the railing. When it became evident the female was refusing to come back over the railing, Mr. Barrett hung on to her arms while waiting for help. Mr. Barrett was assisted shortly thereafter by another citizen, Leah Schillinger. Together, Mr. Barrett and Ms. Schillinger continued to attempt to calm the female in distress while holding on to her to prevent her from jumping off the bridge until officers arrived on scene. Mr. Barrett and Mrs. Schillinger assisted public safety in lifting the female back over the railing to safety. Ms. Schillinger remained on scene to console the female until Emmett EMS arrived to transport her to McLaren Northern Michigan Hospital for further treatment. Public safety later located a suicide note written by the would-be victim. We feel it important to recognize these 3 citizens for their life-saving actions surrounding this very dangerous situation. Sean Dempsey, Terry Barrett, and Leah Schillinger are hereby awarded the Chief's Award. Well done. And the last award is the Mayor's Award, and recipients are Jill Tompkins, Crystal Masta, and Jennifer Shorter.
On February 9th, 2023, at approximately 2:03 in the afternoon, an elementary school principal called school resource officer Carlson to report two kids, two second graders, had left Ottawa school unsupervised. Shortly after, the school principal received information from employees at Grandpa Shorter's in downtown Petoskey that the girls had been located in the store. Excuse me. Public safety officer Carlson responded to Grandpa Shorter's and found the two second graders to be in good spirits. Most students were dressed with winter clothes and boots and hats. When asked what happened today, they said, "We escaped school." The girls were transported back to school. Jill Tompkins, Crystal Massa, and Jennifer Shorter observed something out of the ordinary. And in that situation, they took action. Due to their actions, these young children were properly cared for and returned back to their parents in school. For their actions and attentiveness to react to out of ordinary situations, Jill Thompson, Jennifer Shorter, and Crystal Massa have been awarded the Mayor's Award. Thank you very much, ladies, for what you've done for the community.
Lastly, I just wanted to take a second to honor two officers who worked in 2023, completed their 25 years of service. So Lieutenant Michael Parker and Officer Goziak. Thank you for your service. And lastly, since this is probably the first and last time she'll ever be here, I'd like to recognize Gina Ellenberger, who basically puts all of this stuff together and it constantly helps us do just about everything around there. And we keep piling on her and we get very few complaints, at least to our faces. So we appreciate it. And that concludes the awards portion of this. And if those who got award tonight would like to go over to our community room, we'll take a couple photos and families can be dismissed if you want to stick around.
Just for a second. If you live in Petoskey or in the area, you have to realize if you were sitting in here tonight, how lucky we are to have the police officers we have. And I'd like to give them a big hand. I'd like to also introduce somebody else who is retiring, and I know he's worked closely with you, and that's Sheriff Pete Wallen from Emmett County, right back here.
270 some days about the week.
I get choked up because when you hear these stories and you hear people complain about what the heck to them, why do I always see police cars driving around? What are they doing? If you were to share some of these stories with them, I think they get a real good feel about the value that public safety officers play in each of our lives. And you never know when that's going to be. You don't know if it's a small second grader. You don't know if it's an 87-year-old woman in the bookstore. You don't know when your life may be at risk or somebody you know could be at risk or just needing help, suicidal help, whatever. But thank God we have public safety directors. And let's give them another big hand and say thank you. You can come or stay. I don't think there'll be a fight for a seat. I don't know why I got all choked up.
Yeah, that's giving you the. I mean, I think. Yeah, I mean, because he's.
Do you want to? I can be up here. Been in the firing lane. Like to- Yeah, you can sit too if you'd rather sit.
See that part?
My own.
You're on the. Right, you're on the. Or you just can move this next time. Okay.
$5 after the meeting for coming tonight. Wow. It's 55? Okay. Wow, there's nobody here. I think this is the least. Here we go. Next is a presentation to hear from Public Safety Director Adrian Carr concerning the department's 2023 annual report. And I turn it over to Officer Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna jump right into it. Maybe. There we go. So this is our 2023 annual report. I'm just going to hit some of the cliff notes on it, as the entire report is going to be on our website. It's also included in your packet. We responded to 8,340 requests for service, which was an increase of almost 1,000 from 2022. Our logged complaints, which I can't believe was an even number of 72,000. Was an increase as well of almost 1,000 from 2022. We had 390 total arrests, and compared to 2022, the felony arrests were almost exactly the same, but our misdemeanor arrests went up by a third. So we did have more misdemeanor arrests. Next is our law enforcement calls for service, just kind of breaks it down by year. And I was comparing 2019, that was a freak year. We had a ton of traffic stops going on that year, and a few other things, but the normal trend you can see we're just kind of trending upward from 2020 to 2023. I would like to add that in 2023, we were down 4 officers and we handled 1,000 more complaints, which is really a testament to the officers that we have and the dedication. I know we were dealing with burnout and things like that, but the officers still came to work and they worked hard. Further breakdown, and once again, I did some comparisons with 2022 just to see if there were any outliers. And one thing that I really noted that I'd like to bring to your attention was juvenile complaints In 2023, we had 77. And I compared in 2022, we had 108. So that's quite a reduction in juvenile complaints. And then I think, well, what did we do differently? We have a full-time school resource officer now. So I think that made a huge impact. And I'm in the process with working with the school through some grants, and we are going to try to get a school resource officer that will be stationed in the middle school. As they're pushing for the end of May to try and get a toe in the water. But ultimately, there's a lot of training that has to happen. So it'll probably be next school year. Let me go to the next slide here. The biggest one that I have circled here is the ordinance violations. Last year we had 156, and this year we had 417. Also, traffic stops we doubled traffic stops in 2023 from 2022. But going back to our ordinance violations. In 2023, we added Code Enforcement Officer Tony Belmonte. Was hired in May of 2023. Last year, 417 ordinance complaints were investigated. 24 citations were issued for violations related to short-term rental, tall grass, garbage, rubbish, and zoning. And I think what's important to point out there is that there were only 24 citations issued and 417 complaints. That means that Tony is really trying for compliance. And that's what our ultimate goal is. So really commending his work that he's done in a short period of time. And you might wonder, you see on the graph where it says 72 is the third highest. Those miscellaneous things can be animal complaints, zoning violations, camping, hammocks, those types of things fall into that category. The department responded to 1,005 fire and emergency medical calls for service in 2023. Of these calls for service, 321 were classified as fire response and 684 were medical response. And a comparison, if you're curious, 2022, we had just over 100 more, 179 actually calls for service versus 650 on the EMS portion. So really close. Our detective position. Our detective handles all follow-up investigations and complaints taken by officers, in addition to a variety of other duties. In 2023, Detective Lamont, he continued 96 complaints, 186 new cases. He reopened 15 cases, 36 felony arrest warrants, 49 misdemeanor arrest warrants, and 12 search warrants. And he assisted Petoskey Schools on 11 complaints. So our detective is extremely busy, and we are very fortunate to have someone in that position. We had a promotion last year. In April, PSO Mikulski was promoted to the rank of lieutenant. Lieutenant Mikulski has served the city of Petoskey as a public safety officer since 2004. In addition to his years of service, Lieutenant Mikulski serves the department as our field training officer, program supervisor, and property custodian supervisor. So he stays very busy. He's learning as we, so am I. We're both learning as we go here. Next, we have a couple new faces here as well. We hired Public Safety Officer Michael Dolan in October of 2023, who served at New Baltimore Police Department for 6 years. He's a field training officer and evidence tech. Officer Dolan has completed his law enforcement field training with our department and is working toward his fire and his EMT licensing. So it's nice having someone who has just a little bit of experience. So he's doing a great job, and sooner than later, I'll see him probably training some of our newer officers as well. Doing a great job. And then we also hired Public Safety Officer Dallas Givens. So he was previously a corrections officer for the Emmett County Sheriff's Office for 7 years. He graduated from Kirkland Police Academy and completed his law enforcement field training with our department just a couple weeks ago. I think he maybe have 3 days under his belt right now. So he's doing a great job for us too. Real eager to learn. And that kind of leads us into the Police Academy sponsorship. So in 2023, the city of Petoskey and the Petoskey Department of Public Safety sponsored our new PSO, Dallas Givens. And it's the 17-week academy that's held at Kirkland that Lexi went through. We were also assisted by state grant that we were successful in obtaining for $25,000, which really assisted in this process. PSO Givens was awarded top shot, marksmanship, and most improved in pressure point and control tactics. And what's really neat about this photo on the bottom, that is Officer Givens and his father, Sergeant Givens from the tribe, who got to pin him with our badge at the graduation ceremony. So real special moment there. Just going to touch real quickly on training. We do a ton of training. We receive training in a variety of areas, including firefighter, EMS, and law enforcement. In 2023, officers participated in several important trainings, including hazmat, active shooter, arson investigation, firearms, defensive tactics, de-escalation, implicit bias, use of force, and it really goes on and on and on. We did a lot of training last year. But importantly, officers had the opportunity to participate in a multi-agency active shooter training at the Red Cross building, which they allowed us to utilize. Our department was joined by Central Dispatch, EMS, the Sheriff's Department, Harbor Springs, MSP, basically everyone in the area, which was great training for all of us to be a part of. In 2023, officers completed 3,500 hours of training. A lot of this is online, but a lot of this is hands-on as well. So we also had some community connections and some safety programs. We participated in Strive, which is a really neat program. Actually, we're going to be hosting them again the first week in April next month. Strive is basically trying to re-energize those who may not have been academically motivated in the past. And we were fortunate enough to have Emmett County Sheriff's Department show up with their K9 and drone. We had EMS there, and we gave them kind of a taste of other different aspects of what happened within our community. We also Serve Pro. They always come through for us. They donated a bunch of smoke detectors, which were now free to city homeowners. They just have to come down during our fire prevention week, and we provide those for them. And this was a really neat thing. Our school resource officer Carlson began working with Petoskey schools to stock each classroom with emergency supplies. Each pack contains a stop the bleed kit, emergency blankets, hygiene items. This is not just, it can be utilized during like lockdown situations for extended period of times and things like that. So it was a great idea, and he was able to get in each classroom. Our 12th annual open house, we were able to hold once again in June, and we believe there were more than 500 people that visited our station. Guests were treated to snacks, refreshments, and gifts. Guests checked out fire equipment, police equipment, observed drone demonstration, operated fire hose, just really had a good time with us there. We were joined by just everybody. And it continues to grow, really, if you think about it, if that's even possible, but we have more and more people that want to get involved with it every year. And the gentleman there who's helping the little guy with the fire hose is Adam Klimza, and he is at Lake Superior State, and he will be our newest PSO down the road here. This is our 12th annual Citizens Academy that we held again this year, which was, it's always a hit. 24 hours instruction, it's 9 weeks. It's a different topic every single time. And you can see the rejuvenation in the officers who help instruct, and those who take the course are amazed at all the hands-on that we provide during this opportunity. It's really been a great thing for the public as well as the officers. We all enjoy it. We're like a bunch of kids when we start cutting into things, breaking stuff. So, and lastly, our two gentlemen there, PSO Goziak and Lieutenant Parker, we did honor them with plaques. I didn't want to really get them in front of everybody and give them the plaques, which I probably should have, of the abuse that they provided me over the years. But I just wanted to recognize them once again for 25 years of service to the community. And that concludes the 2023 report. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, thank you for that report.
You're welcome.
When I read the report about recruitment and the focus on recruitment and the challenges with that, I was just curious, like your assessment of, are we at optimal staffing, or just what's your thoughts around that?
I'd always take more. But we are down one right now at the moment, because when the school absorbed one of our officers, that left us short one, and you can see that we need the detective. So I don't really have anyone to pull from. So once we fill that spot, and we'll be at optimal running capacity, hopefully. If bar that no one gets hurt or leaves, I mean, you can see we have two that can retire. So we're always trying to stay ahead, which is very difficult. So hiring practices have become extremely unique anymore, where instead of setting up interviews, sometimes I've seen other surrounding areas will do on the spot interviews when they show up to drop off a resume, which is unheard of, truthfully. So, but I mean, we have a big draw here. This is a beautiful community. People want to come here. Public safety has its own difficulties, but I think we're doing good with what we have. And once we have this other spot filled, I think we're going to be okay.
Thank you. And I just want to make note of one other thing. At the very beginning of your report, you said, this is a quote, "I'm not going to lie, 2023 provided many struggles along with some triumphs." And I just want to tell you, to me, that's exactly what a leader says. And I appreciate that modeling for young people, because it's just the truth of our existence that sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't. We keep trying. So I think putting that out there in that way was excellent modeling. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
Hi, Dr. Carr. Hi there. Thanks for your presentation, and thanks for celebrating the merits and achievements tonight. That is an honor to be part of that. So
Thank you.
I just had a question about the ordinance enforcement.
Okay.
I think, did I hear you right? You said moved from 156
417
to 417 complaints?
Yes.
Okay. And with that, in the little write-up here, it says that Officer Belmonte works closely to identify and address complaints. Are those 417, are those ones that are identified, Officer Belmonte going out and seeing those, or are those all complaint driven? How does that work? And can you expound?
It's kind of a little bit of all of those things you said. He's active. He has a schedule where he goes to each ward to make sure he's not spending one time in just one ward and things like that. And a lot of times when he's addressing certain violations, there's other violations pointed out to him, if that makes sense, where, oh yeah, well, so-and-so is doing this, or have you seen this over here? So it's kind of the snowball effect on many of his issues but I would say it's really close to a 50-50 on the amounts that are called in versus what he finds. But like I said, a lot of that is others that are pointing it out to him when he's addressing other issues, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And so, and on the other side, when it talks about the IPMC issues and working with property owners to correct the situations, which is great. Are there times when I've been in the position for a year, but repeat situations where I'm wondering if some of these violations, we correct it, and then a year or 2 years later, there's correction again. How long do we have a protocol or system for how long do we keep working with a landowner versus then?
It's kind of a case by case basis, but there's certain instances where he has come to me and he runs things by me quite a bit to say, hey, this person is doing this. We warned them the last time and it's been a year and now they're doing it again. I always tell them, make contact with them one more time and tell them it's strike two. And that, I mean, they're courtesies. We're still trying to get compliance, but a lot of times people get either complacent or think that we're not watching anymore or don't and can slip under the radar. And when it's brought to his attention again, you know, we're very light-handed unless it continues. And then sometimes we just have to issue this citation. And even issuing the citation doesn't mean that they have to pay that. They can go to the court and go through the process. And if Tony believes that, okay, they have become compliant, then sometimes he can dismiss the ticket as well. So there's been several where he's gone to, for instance, a short-term rental where either they weren't receiving the citation or the mail or whatever it was, and he's gone to court with them and dismissed the citations because he can see online that they've become compliant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And as you know, we're learning this process, I think I appreciate the balance of, you know, when I see 156 up to 417, you know, there's a little bit of concern of, are we overreaching? Are we going to be a nuisance to people for small complaints like maybe grass? But I think there's a balance then some of these other issues like the short-term rentals, like the IPMC, you know, we want compliance. We want things to change. And so it's a tough position to hold both of those roles. And I just want to say thank you and also encourage, you know, keep threading that line.
I would hope that these complaints we get less and less every year. It's basically stuff that has gone unaddressed. So you're going to have higher numbers off the beginning. And then we're hoping to see those kind of filter down where we don't have those same issues anymore because now they are being addressed.
Thank you.
So.
Just a quick comment. I got Tony in the back here and thank you to you, Paul, and your team and all you do.
Thank you.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your report, Adrian, and for acknowledging your both on-duty and off-duty officer. I noticed that there were several accounts of people that were actually off-duty and still rose to the occasion and kind of gives voice to what we tell our young people, that you see something, you say something, or you act in whatever capacity that you can, because that's like the level of engagement that these men and women that work for this organization are giving to the bigger community. So I really appreciate that. In regards to the sweet spot of officers, you had mentioned that you have in the report, there's 20 full-time officers and then 5 part-time, so that would be 25. And if you are one short, it would be ideal to have like 21 to 22 officers, full-time officers on duty at all times. Does that mean that necessarily Goziak and Mr. Parker are wanting to retire? Is it like, is 25 years like kind of a sweet spot for public safety officers, or where are they at?
They can retire by their MERS and whatnot, like 25 years. You have to have 25 years of service and be 50 years old. Actually, Parker can't go yet because
He's not 20, he's not.
he's not 50.
But Scott is.
Scott is. You got it.
Okay,
So, I told Scott he better not, shoot from the hip, and I come in here and there's a letter, I'll see you later on my desk. But he very well could find something else that he'd be willing to do outside of law enforcement and say,
Sure.
yeah.
well, I appreciate their level of commitment. That just shows, gives testimony that they're not gonna leave until maybe they feel like there is somebody in that position that can take over. So that it gives will and testament to that they value this job and they take it very seriously. So really grateful for that. Thank you so much for.
Thank you.
Questions.
One more.
Do we have a date for the open house in June?
June 8th.
Thank you.
Yep.
Having attended it every year. Get there early if you want a hot dog. They're great hot dogs. But otherwise you may have to get only a half, they'll cut it in two. So I want to say this is that, we have not had enforcement such as we've had to bring it up to snuff for quite a few years. And this has been going back and forth. Who's enforcing what? And it was basically up to an officer. If they felt that they had time to do it, they did it.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to get a big bubble of start and we're going to get things situated. It's going to come down. It'll stabilize. So thank you for what you do, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian.
Public Safety Director, thank you. Okay. Consent agenda for the March 4th, 2024 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge a receipt of certain transaction administratively that have happened since March 4th, 2024. I take it, Mr. Moore.
First, I want to say happy birthday to our city clerk before I offer my correction.
Right.
On page 45, where we had a discussion about the Petoskey Youth Advisory Council, if you look at line 4, there's just 2 corrections. One, students need to either attend school in Petoskey or reside in Petoskey. So I want to make sure that that's correct in the event anybody reads our minutes. And they're not required to be AP or government students. That was just kind of background information about why we would be looking at 10th through 12th graders instead of younger students. So I would just ask that those corrections be made. Thank you.
Do I have a motion or possible questions?
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion.
I have a motion from Ms. Walker. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Second from Mr. Shield. Again, any other questions, comments? Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. I saw that this round on page 53 at line 4, the NLEA payment of $10,000 came up. And one request I would like to make is that, that is a budget line item. But I would like to request that every year in advance of that budget line item, that we have a presentation from NLEA to kind of have a better understanding of what they have done for us over the year prior. So it's not an objection to this. We approved it in the budget, but I would make that request moving forward. Thank you.
I know they have a brand new director. So that could well delay possible any presentation, just to let you know.
Just in advance of budget, that's all.
All right. I go to Ms. Beckle.
Walker? Yes. Shields? Demore?
Aye.
Wagner?
Sorry.
I am backwards, Murphy. I think I got all five, right? With these.
Yes. It passes 5-0, the consent agenda. Now it's your chance for public comment. If there's anybody that would like to speak, come on down. Tell you what, hang on and we're gonna get you a mic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
That's right.
He's even gonna push it so it's green. There you are. Yes, sir.
Hello, everybody.
Wow.
And that was a wonderful police presentation, very heartwarming and something we can all relate to. I'm glad I came today. I'm gonna start coming to most of the meetings. I'll enjoy it. In my situation, I had a rental for 14 years and somehow the payment got misplaced last year. The second I found out about it, I ran down and tried to pay the payment. But because of the temporary injunction, they could not accept it. So I've been trying and working so that you can approve my continuation of my rental. The only problem was your injunction. I got caught in the paperwork. There's no complaints on my place. There's no trouble over 14 years. It's a wonderful isolated place. Derek was out the other day. What's your opinion of my place, Derek?
Show me around.
Okay, so all I'm saying, I think, because the injunction by the council stopped me from renting before, and it's over, there should be no reason I shouldn't be able to have my rental back. And, you know, I've been to 3 meetings, I've written a lot of letters, I've talked to legal advice, I've called, talked to 4 of the rent. So I'm just saying I'd like you to take a vote and agree to let me have my normal rental back at my house that I live at and that I built, and that I plan for my retirement to have a small Airbnb for 50 days of the year to support myself. So like I said, I got caught in the paperwork. You guys had an injunction, so they couldn't accept my payment. So here we are now. So Sarah can't accept it until she has your approval. So that's what I asked, that you talk it over and grant it to me so we don't have to go to another step higher or something like that. Because I've incurred damages, emotional stress, a lot of work, legal advice. So I think we should let you talk between you and try to agree to allow her to give me my rentals back. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else who wishes to speak to council at this time? There being none. We'll move on. We're now going to move on to the city manager's updates.
Thank you, Mayor. While Sarah gets that going, I just want to send my thanks to Director Carr and Tony. They've been outstanding to work with. Director Carr's had a first year has been fairly challenging, and we recently sat down. I've started to incorporate some stay interviews for our leadership team, really trying to ask the questions of are there challenges or concerns with your job before we have an exit interview. I want to learn what those things are that are potential challenges before they become to a point where I'm either not interested in showing up to work anymore, or I'm looking at another opportunity. So we've had very good discussions with our leadership team that I'm going to also facilitate to our full-time staff as well. But in talking to Director Carr, this has been a challenging year in many ways, and I think Director Carr has provided great leadership. You know, as I sat down with the bargaining groups of all 3 units, they spoke very highly of Director Carr and his leadership. I only got to work with Director Breed a short amount of time, but we connected very quickly, and certainly wished that he would have stayed on a little bit longer. But certainly it's great that he's able to enjoy the fruits of his retirement. But Director Carr has been a great leader in that department. I'm certainly looking forward to many years working with him. And Tony's been a great asset to me as well. It's great to hear his laughter throughout the hallways. He doesn't necessarily take himself as serious as probably sometimes our job gets a little heavy. And so hearing that laughter and just how jovial he is in the hallway is just great. And I certainly appreciate his attitude. Certainly he's looking for compliance first and foremost, and that's great. And certainly, again, appreciate his. He's kind of out there on the front lines, and a lot of times gets those folks that aren't necessarily happy to see him. So he has a great way to diffuse potential challenging situations. So thank you both for your leadership. Just quickly, a few things to hit on this afternoon, this evening. Wanted to update you on some public meetings we have yet this week. Tomorrow night, we have the Downtown Management Board. They will be reviewing the design plan for the Seville lot. As you may recall, that is in the capital improvement plan for renovations. So the Downtown Management Board will be reviewing that design. We also will be reviewing the dining deck resolution. We are working on a larger spec, if you will, so we can go the ordinance route. So we're not having to do this on an annual basis. So we put a lot of effort into this, but we're not quite ready to get this in front of our merchants. This is going to be a potentially a heavier lift for merchants. So we want to give them enough time to build up to what we're asking them to do from a standard and specification standpoint. So we have consistency in our downtown. And then they'll also be reviewing the 24 facade improvement grants, as well as looking at the Barnacle parking device and having that discussion that will eventually come to you for further consideration as well. Planning Commission is following night on Wednesday. Fairly light agenda. I think they're just going to be looking at kind of gearing up for the zoning ordinance topics for discussion. We'll hopefully be setting. I've provided John the couple of dates, first and second options that you each provided me. So hopefully we can get that zeroed into those dates at the next meeting on Wednesday, and I'll get those dates back to you to firm that up. Some continued good news on the Maple Block site. They did have their closing on March 6th, as was discussed previously. So that is now in the hands of Great Lakes Capital. We did actually open bids today. There's been an RFP on the street for abatement and demolition of the site. Bids were due back today and open today at 3 p.m. at Emmett County. We did get great results. We had 10 bids received, ranging from $686,000 to over $2.1 million. So if you remove the 2.1 million number and take that average of the remaining 9, it averaged out to about 903,000 was the average of those 9 bids. As you may recall, they did receive $1 million state land bank grant for this abatement and demo work. So it's great that looks like it's going to get underneath that. We thought initially the engineer's estimate was 1.4 million. So obviously, we've got a lot of vetting to do yet. The county is going to be going through that process with our consultant to make sure that the low bidder has the wherewithal to be able to pull this off and the backing to be able to pull it off. But we were very pleased with the quantity and the quality of the bids that we received. So if everything continues forward, the Emmett County Land Bank Authority will consider a bid at their regular meeting on March 28th. And award that bid at that time, and then the developer is anxious to start the abatement and demo work in April. The city has removed all utilities. You may have saw our electrical department down there for a few days. We removed all of the electrical that was going into the facility. We've already removed water, sewer, so we are anxiously awaiting the wrecking balls to arrive. So that'll be a great day. Also wanted to announce kind of the kickoff to our construction season, the first project being Bayview Avenue. This is a reconstruct that will include water main replacement, new pavement and subgrade, curb and gutter, and new sidewalk. Again, this is off of East Mitchell to the dead end. This is scheduled to begin on April 1st of 24. Couple of things to highlight, and I'll let Council Member Wagner maybe do this first one. It might have been on your list to share in your comments anyway, but if you want to talk about the Saturday's event.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mentioned it before when I was knocking on doors in 2019. There was a grandma on her porch and welcomed me and told me about her daughter and grandson who had food allergies. And she asked if we could resurrect, I think there was something in the past, an allergy-free Easter egg hunt. And it's now called the Tip of the Mid Spartan Group. Took that on as a service project and have worked with Val Meyerson and the library. And we've got a number of in McLean and Eakin and donations for books in place of food. And so this is the second year, and last year, I think the number was 600 children or something. It was a big number. So really successful, big undertaking, and it's young kids. It's like ages 2 to 6, the focus.
So don't try to show up, Tony. And then on the 30th of March, the city is partnering with the county, Emmett County, the great Start Collaborative and Emmett County 4-H program to provide a egg scramble at the fairgrounds on Saturday, March 30, starting at 11 a.m. Sponsors for that are Stafford's Pier Restaurant, Corktown Pizza, Walmart, and Meijer. So we encourage folks to get out and enjoy both those opportunities. Is that it?
Oh.
Yeah, that,
Yeah, that's it.
okay.
Any questions? Mr. Fields.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, Manager Horn, I agree, excited about the demo for the Mission Maple Block. I will also say, and also being sensitive to the idea of something that was a storied history of Petoskey.
Yeah.
It's chapter ending, so we're just also being sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Oh.
I did slide one more slide.
Oh, that was earlier today. Like, can you take a picture so I can send it to my mom? She's recording.
Go stand up next to it.
No, thank you. Michelle decorated my office and then when I got here this afternoon, so. Anyway,
I thought you were 30.
thank you. Yeah.
I will say kudos to Sarah. She's been such a great great support to me in my transition to this new opportunity, just welcoming me and getting me up to speed. And I throw a lot of things at her and she's been outstanding. So I appreciate your partnership as well.
Mr. Moore.
Just quickly, by way of education for me, I've not heard of a stay interview before.
Mhm.
And so you said it's like kind of assessing folks that are working here and how's it going and what are challenges.
Mhm.
Is it also trying to convince people to stay? Or
Well, I mean, certainly you want your high performers to stay engaged. So it's hearing from them. It's kind of like a check-in. Hearing, a lot of times, Director Carr and I, just to use him for instance, we see each other every day. We stop, he stops in, we see each other in the hallway, and it's a lot of just maybe not substantial conversation, but this gets us behind closed doors, and he can just, vent to me, let me know what's on his mind, and I can do the same to him if I have challenges that I'm experiencing with him or his department. So it's just a way that I can listen, and they can also share what's on their mind before it gets to a point where you're just so disconnected or so frustrated with your job that you start, I might think about that opportunity, or I might look at this other opportunity. Let's try to walk through that and address maybe some, and I've said this to staff and they understand this. I can't give you a 25% raise. Don't come in here asking for these huge raises, but what can we do structurally? If there's some operational things that I can tweak, that we're going to talk about, when we go into closed session in my evaluation, but if there's some structural things that we can change operationally that makes this a more attractive situation. We certainly want our staff to be up there from a wage and a benefit standpoint, but there's also things that we can consider that separate us from our competitors as well. workplace atmosphere, leave time, those type of things. We increased bereavement leave, things like that, and looking at work hours and trying to create those maybe some better work-life balance opportunities. So that's kind of the focus of a stay interview, where you can share what's on your mind, some of those frustrations, and if there's ways that I can address some of those frustrations before they become to a point where enough's enough. I'm looking at somewhere else. We don't want our high performers leaving. Obviously, and I won't even go any further, but we certainly don't want our high performers leaving.
Thank you.
That goes for you guys too.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that work-life balance thing that I could use some help on. So,
And there's been, as I've grown in my career, there's been times where I've was working and I've never seen the city manager, didn't know what his name was. He didn't know me. And we're small enough that I want to know everybody. They should have the ability to come see me. And so providing that opportunity to all our full-time staff, I'm going to give you an hour or more of my time. Let's sit down. Let's talk about what's on your mind. We can get to know each other a little bit. I can get to know you. So when I see you out in the community, we can kind of share pleasantries and things like that instead of just passing by each other. So I never want to get to a point where somebody says, well, I don't even know who the city manager is. He's never been out to see me, or I never talked to him. That's not me. I want to engage. So that's what these are for.
thank you.
All set? Okay. Move on to old business. Adoption of a proposed resolution that would approve the Petoskey Youth Advisory Council policies and procedures. And for that, I'll turn it over to Ward 1 Representative Ms. Demore.
Well, I don't think I have much to say. I think one change that was made, there were lines both under application and reapplication requiring the council to approve who was on the council. And I think
We don't want that.
the mayor and some others suggested that be removed. So in the spirit of full disclosure, that's not in there. Otherwise, it's the same as it was.
I felt it was giving the empowerment to Ms. Demore and the counselor at the high school, the teachers and those that had working with her to get the best students for this, knowing the kids as they are I know you're doing a blind application, cross out, black out.
Yeah.
So I feel very confident that does not need to come back to city council. And I applaud your activities on this, knowing how busy you are.
And just to be clear, we are reaching out to not only Petoskey High School, but Concord Academy, St. Michael's, and homeschool, all those. And
Okay.
so as long as they attend school in Petoskey or reside in Petoskey, they're qualified.
So Harbor Light would also be included in that,
No,
if they're,
That's a good
they live
question.
in,
well, then we need to go Charlevoix, St. Mary's, and I mean, where are you gonna end?
if they're,
If
if they reside in Petoskey.
Okay,
I will check it out. Thank you for that.
I have a colleague whose son goes there, so he lives in Petoskey.
I appreciate it.
do I have a support for a motion for this?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields. Do I have a second? I'll support. There's a motion from Mr. Shields, second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion, council, do you wish to weigh in?
I'm only going to say one thing. If this passes, you all need to reserve the second Monday in October. That is known as October 14th, which will be the opening session. And we are going to, with Shane's help, have a joint event in the trolley to go around and see those parks, et cetera. And it's your opportunity to be in the trolley with the YAC students. And that'll kind of be the kickoff together, October 14th, if the motion passes.
Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for taking the lead on this.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work and we look forward to meeting the students in the fall. She'll probably be calling on you as well for some other activities along this. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think you've all made a commitment, yes, to that. Next is new business, adoption of proposed resolution that would approve Housing North contract. I'll turn that over to our city manager, Shane Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, Yarrow Brown provided a presentation on Housing North. We do have, I believe Andrea is still hanging with us. Maybe Andrea Jacobs, our connection with Housing North. The contract before you kind of is similar to what we've done in the past. I've carried this out through December 31st of 2025. So we have in the budget $10,000 for this contractual partnership for 24. And obviously we would go through the budgeting process and consider that at that time, but this contract kind of carries that forward so we can give some additional stability to make sure that we're able to continue that partnership for the next 21 months at the same level of commitment level going forward. So Andrea has joined us. So if there's specific questions, I also provided a little bit of program highlights for Emmett County overall, that you can kind of see some of the things that they've been up to within our county. And then Andrea is also again available to answer any sort of your direct questions at this time.
Mr. Moore.
Hello, Andrea. She hear me?
There.
Oh, yep.
She there?
Yep.
Okay, good. So Andrea, when I looked at the resolution and the agreement, both of them talk about providing technical support and technical assistance. And so I just like to have a clear understanding of what you folks do for the city of Petoskey in those lanes or any other lanes you'd like to speak to. Thank you.
Well, that's a fantastic question. I think that,
I know.
Hang on, I'm going to try to turn your volume up a little bit.
is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So I think that the Housing North does a lot of work, obviously at the state level, to make sure that some of the legislative initiatives are available to us, which we have seen over the past 2 years sort of come to fruition, whether it's tax incentives and other options. Definitely some monies have been available that have widened sort of the scope of grant making and loan making from some of the state entities that we have been able to sort of match with the local developers and projects. So that's one aspect. You know, another aspect is taking a look at what the priorities are laid out for when I sit, you know, in meetings. And I just want to take a minute. I know it's not public comment, but I would like to say, as many council meetings or planning commission meetings that I've sat in, like, this is definitely my favorite. Here's me sitting in my living room, like clapping for the public safety officers. Like, it's fantastic. And also Sarah, by the way, happy birthday. I'm so happy you've survived. I'm so glad you were born. But, you know, working with staff and also sitting with each of the communities in Emmett County to meet them where they are and understand, you know, not only what their capacity is at, you know, the staff level, but also what their desire is as far as development goes, and making sure that I'm matching all of those sort of equations up, making sure I'm making those relationships available to them. And it goes all the way through, you know, master plan process, ordinance, language, and, you know, kind of what you're doing right now, making, like, for example, City of Petoskey has gotten the Rural Readiness Grant, the Housing Readiness Incentives Grant. They have gotten, you know, quite a bit of activity with your, you know, your second level sort of residential. We have worked through, you're the first community in the state of Michigan to do the HTIF as far as Maple Block, also the residential facilities exemption, you know, creating, and I'm not going to take credit for those opportunities, but I will say that, you know, Housing North as an organization, but also, you know, my role in communicating with staff, developers, and landowners in the community, hopefully is adding to those opportunities when we're trying to go forward in a consistent way with what you guys as a community have prioritized. And that's the equation that I'm always trying to work within and say, you know, meet the community where they are, bring some opportunities in, and try to make sure I'm quarterbacking that all the way across the finish line. So it's not always a very quick timeline, but it is, you know, it is a lot of quick thinking, I would say, over the scope of a development. So
as a follow-up, since Housing North represents more than one community in northern Michigan, when there are competing interests, how do you deal with that? Or are there competing interests? I would think there were.
I don't know about competing. I would say, I mean, like my universe is Emmett County, right? And though there is 21 units of government in Emmett County, obviously Petoskey is sort of the gravity center economically. So there's a lot of attention focused on Petoskey, and also from a capacity standpoint with water and sewer and everything else. I mean, it's sort of like, if we're going to develop, here's our opportunity. But that doesn't exclude other communities. Harbor Springs has worked really diligently on their planning and zoning, and they're right at a crucial point. Actually tonight, for their city council to approve some planning commission planning and zoning changes that are consistent with the Michigan Association of Planners Residential Reform toolkits. So, and Pelston is also doing a lot of that, you know. So part of what I do is try to make sure that I can support each community, again, where they are. If it's the master plan process, if it's the sort of community envisioning process, if they're ready, like for example, the Village of Mackinac City is ready to go. They have parcels, they want to be introduced to developers. Okay. So everyone's on a different spectrum, but the entirety of my universe is Emmett County. And so everything that I do within Emmett County feels like it is affected by, and also in turn affects, City of Petoskey. Just because we are kind of a one economic center. Other counties might have a number of different economic sort of municipalities, but for us, it's really just the one. So I'm not really competing with the other 10 counties by any stretch. I do try to participate and make sure that I'm being consistent with what's happening with Housing North from their wider frameworking, and what they are making available to us at the statewide level or at the regional level with the regional sort of strategic housing plan. But all of my energy and my work goes to my Emmett County communities. And I don't really see that as competitive, because everything I do for Emmett County really ultimately affects Petoskey in one way or another.
I have one more, unless somebody else wants a turn. Okay. So you started out by saying an important part of what you do is connecting in Lansing. And so I'm curious, I'm very interested in Senate Bill number 293. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I don't know. I'm hoping you're familiar with that, because what it does, it appears to do, and I talked to Senator DeMoose about this the other day. Previously, there was a funding pool for low income, very low income, extremely low income households in urban areas. And what Senate Bill 293 does is extend that funding potentially to areas throughout the state. And given the Bowen Housing Report and the needs that were reflected in that, I'm curious if this is something that's on Housing North's radar at this point in time.
I would confidently say yes. It definitely is. A lot of our focus is in the missing middle, the 80 to 120, just because that's been so glaringly sort of overlooked.
I'm
And
having
it's affecting so many of our rural partners, but the data shows that we need to be.
Andrea, I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry. You're like, your voice is blurred, for lack of a better descriptor. Thank you.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. So I missed a lot of that response. Apologies.
Okay, I would say it's for sure on our radar. A lot of our focus is in the 80 to 120% AMI, just because that has been overlooked in the past. It basically, up until now or recently, hasn't needed to be attended to, whereas a lot of the lower income and, you know, deeper affordability has really needed a lot of subsidy. That being said, our part of the state and a lot of the rural communities that we represent haven't had access to those deeper affordability strategies because they're all focused on more urban environments. I think it's truly important for us to be able to access those strategies that will affect our lowest income community members. And I think that Housing North for sure is supporting that and on the forefront of that. It hasn't gotten to my workload yet because it hasn't sort of come all the way to fruition. So it is on the radar of Housing North and their advocates in Lansing. But it isn't a factor in what I'm doing day to day right now until it becomes sort of enacted.
I would only respectfully request that confirmation be made that eyes are on this Senate bill because I think it's important. Thank
It
you.
is 100%. Yep. And Borealis Strategic, Kent Wood is our representative in Lansing. And he has, we have talked about this definitely in Housing North, sort of in our staff meetings and things. So yes, it definitely is on the radar and definitely is being advocated for on behalf of Housing North and on behalf of the our region as far as our statewide housing partnership region is concerned. I'm
Thank
confident.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina, did you get a sense that it's, that it is, John DeMoose that's sponsoring this bill?
No.
Oh, no, it's just something that would be in his realm of voting or approval.
Yeah, I was down at MML and at the conference, he was there. And so I just want to call this to his attention. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Andrea, for your report. It was very helpful to kind of encapsulate the year of Emmett County Housing Ready Program highlights. I also was looking at, as I was looking over both the contract and the report, I always am noting like who's participating and who's contributing and who isn't. Duly noted. So just between the city of Petoskey, Resort Township, and the city of Harbor Springs, and then 3 philanthropic organizations have given to support this position. And despite, you know, not all the county not participating in that directly or other municipalities with high populations, it's duly noted that you, despite them not necessarily giving an economic contribution, there might be some other in-kind contributions that are happening, like a space for your office within the Emmett County building, but also like that you continue to work throughout Emmett County regardless of who's contributing to your salary and your benefits is this position. So I just wanted to note that I'm so grateful that we've been able to foster this position, and I see the work that you're doing out in the community and that Housing North is doing in the region. And when I look at the scope of work, I was like, wow, this is a pretty rigorous scope of work that was part of the attachment of the job description. And I was like, wow, this is this is kind of a big deal, and I noticed that the language within the scope of work seemed to be like a little bit of copy and paste, so I would wonder, at some point, maybe like evaluating like where this scope of work kind of originated from, and if there's things that are more contextual to the larger scope versus like what you're providing for the city of Petoskey. So I mean, I guess I could probably ask further questions of that to the city manager in terms of like how the scope was actually created. And I'm hopeful that you'll be able to help us and participate in both our chill grant administration and as our contracted city planner goes to evaluate the different zones and the best recommendations for improving zoning for more affordability of housing and attainability of housing. So I look forward to hopefully you working in coordination with the city of Petoskey on those grants and making our processes even better. Thanks.
Thanks, Lindsay. I appreciate that. And I do try to pay attention to where I can be as effective as possible and what is happening in the community from an impact standpoint, regardless of I personally, and that's why I always send or, try to make sure that Yarrow or a board member is advocating as far as the funding goes, because I don't want to be really part of that discussion. I want to just sort of look at the community and feel like where I can have the most impact and know that we're doing the right things in the right order for the right reasons. I will say, Resort Township, Bear Creek Township, and West Traverse Township, I don't know whether it's before or currently, there are kind of further participation than those noticed. Whether that continues moving forward, I can't be a guarantee of that, but Shane can speak a little bit more to the kind of direction that we have had to go. And I want to compliment the city, the council, and the planning commission on your willingness to really be a leader. And I will say not only in our region, but in the state of Michigan, you guys are really on the forefront of not only housing ready in general, as far as planning, zoning, and all of that kind of stuff, but really pushing forward into that unknown space of some of these tax incentive strategies that have never existed before for our rural partners. You're at the forefront of what's happening in the state of Michigan and have really shown a lot of courage. And I know there is back and forth as far as, us learning and becoming more familiar with some of these processes and the relationships with developers. But you guys have been really, I would say, I'm really pleased to represent Emmett County. And I know that we have the eyes of the state on us. And I want to compliment you on your confidence and your willingness to go forward into that space, because other people, other communities, and other rural partners are noticing what we've done here and what we are doing. And I know it feels very slow going. And once we get to that 3-dimensional, like moving dirt and, tearing down buildings and building new things up, that's when it starts to feel really exciting. But in the meantime, I think I try to work as much as I can with staff and make sure that I can be as effective as possible in supporting and adding capacity where they need it. I know that you've had some transition in Petoskey as far as planning and things like that, but Shane is a spectacular resource and makes sure that I can be, as strategic as possible when it's time. And, whether that is in sort of a shared envisioning or whether we talk about priorities or, what that looks like. I want to make sure that I've put a lot of units in play as far as the city of Petoskey is going. So I'm trying to ease off a little bit there, but there's a lot of other things that we could be doing in the next couple of years that would really put us in a great position moving forward. So I look forward to working with you guys and the planning commission on that.
I did have one more question, Mayor. Excuse me if I may. Andrea, on page, it's part of the highlights page, and there is several kind of marked bullet points, and there was one on the fourth one down that Howard Properties, 40 acres of mixed income residential units. Can you extrapolate on that project a little bit? Because I recognize the Howard Properties name, but I wasn't really familiar with that project.
Yeah, so that is out on 131, out like the old Behan property, basically, kind of in Bear Creek Township. And so there's 40 acres there, and that has kind of been on the back burner for a number of years. And I think right now, not that it won't happen, but they're sort of on pause right now, sort of in that space that Petoskey, Bear Creek, and Resort Township are evaluating their water and sewer capacity. I think that is a major component of what happens moving forward, because that would be quite a lot of units sort of to add to the capacity, and making sure that we can not only geographically stretch those lines, but also handle whatever input that becomes. And I've been trying to ratchet that up on their timeline. But as we've seen, even the projects that are right at the top of their list don't seem to be moving forward as quickly as we would love to see. So that I would say, I would love to see that within the 2-year mark starting to break ground, because they have had control of that property for a number of years now, and they're really looking forward to moving forward. And because it's outside of the city, they do seem to have a wider, spectrum of creativity there. They'd like to see some multifamily, they'd like to see some, townhomes, they'd like to see some single family residential, which ideally on a parcel of that size is like the perfect sort of variety of housing that really creates a spectacular neighborhood. And I would love to be a part of what happens there. But right now, because it's such a big development, they need to make sure it's phased out appropriately, and also that they have the infrastructure to support it. And that all comes back down to, that sewer study and, the work that Shane and the DPW are doing right now with the state grant, so that we can take a look at that plan, moving forward.
Just quickly for Shane, the city manager, I wonder if you could just speak a bit to the value you see Housing North bringing to Petoskey from your perspective.
Yeah, Andrea and I talk quite often through the course of time. When there's a housing related issue or concern, Andrea is my go-to person. As you know, we don't have a housing department. And we know what that cost looks like if we brought somebody in full-time, paid benefits, office space. For what we're providing from a compensation standpoint, I think we are well exceeding the services that we're getting from Housing North and Andrea specifically. And I would say the same thing for NLEA. We don't have an economic development position. I think all of us, and I say this to department heads, we all should have a 30-second elevator speech that we're given to people as we come into contact on why you should, come to Petoskey, why you should bring your business to Petoskey, why you should start a business in Petoskey. But I lean on our partners here. I lean on Housing North. I lean on NLEA to assist. And that's, Andrea and she a lot of times will bring a developer to me, to the city, whether it's John, and myself and Andrea, we have that initial conversation with a developer, try to figure out what they're interested in. She brought us, the City Park Grill rental rehab project, and that's facilitated that discussion. And a lot of times she'll bring things to me and kind of hand them off, and we run with it as city council and with staff. And then, Andrea goes on to the next opportunity going forward. So we work very closely together. We have a great working relationship, and I certainly value her expertise in this field. That's because it's something that it's obviously a priority of city council, right? It's one of your action items. So as we explore housing, without this partnership, we would be much further behind. I know I get frustrated. I know Andrea gets frustrated where it feels like we queue things up, where council has approved things. We have walked developers through to get to a certain point, and then outside of our area, things tend to slow down, whether it's the economy or whether it's labor or what have you. We have a number of these projects in the queue, as you all know and have been aware of. Our challenge is let's put a shovel in the ground. Let's move. Let's get going. And that gets very frustrating to have all these things queued up and then nothing happen on the backside. But that's the great news with the Maple Block, stuff happening. We're going to see the Lofts project move forward, as I provided that update to you as well. So we've got some things churning, and now we got to get through this weather cycle, and hopefully this spring and summer you're going to see some fruit and all this labor that we put in.
Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. Just very quickly, I see the big hairy problems like the housing crisis as complex and requiring networked solutions, so branching solutions to get to problem solving, and linear approaches don't work.
Yeah.
And so we need someone to network. We need someone to manage that network. And as Manager Horn mentioned, we don't have an in-house person for that. So I am appreciative for this position that Andrea plays to manage that network to problem solving.
A motion to adopt the proposed resolution that would approve the Housing North contract.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion? There being none, I go to Sarah Beth for roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker. Yes. Demore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Now we'll have city council comments.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you very much. We'll have city council comments followed by a closed session. So city council comments, let's start with Ms. Walker, Ward 4.
I learned a new word. It's called force majeure. It's very French. In the contract language. So I had to do some research when I was reading and studying for this weekend or this meeting. So I always appreciate the opportunity to learn something new. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, no comment. Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. I just came across this quote this week and I wanted to share it. Anything we create in this world is going to be created with those we disagree with. It's Josh Sherry. In a year, president's election year, going through zoning ordinance changes, I thought that was a relevant quote to take to heart. And Sarah, I think it can be summed up as simply as keep engaging and keep listening.
Thank you.
Ms. Demore.
Follow up on that. A team of respectful rivals produces the best outcomes. And following up on an opportunity to learn something new, point of pride, I just completed the first level of the MML Elected Officials Academy. I studied up on curriculum and advocacy and attended MML CapCon, but I already talked about that, and Senator DeMoose and trying to give the push on Senate Bill 293 to get some money for lower income housing in rural areas. So thank you.
I attended a League of Women Voters Zoom workshop the other day. We talked about Alice, asset limited, income constrained, yet employed. Which is much different than poverty. These are people that are not in the level of poverty, which is about 13% of society. But this is in the other 30% going above that are very restricted, and was very informative, and it was really great. It is online, and you can Zoom it through the League of Women Voters if you wish to watch. It's about an hour, and if being no further business to come before this council, other than going to closed session, we will
Keep going.
go to closed session. We will be coming back and there will be no business taken. So I'm asking for a motion.
Just a point, you may adopt a evaluation form when you come back. You may not, but you may.
Okay, then we'll keep that open that there may be business. think that's the first that we've done this that way, but sounds great.
So moved.
So I'm asking for a motion to go into closed session to discuss blah, 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 the Michigan Open Meetings Act, to consider periodic personal evaluation of the city manager.
So moved. that We
Second.
go into a
I
closed.
have a motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Mr. Shields. Sarah Beck, roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker. Murphy.
Aye. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Any grass? Did they cut anybody with long grass in their yard? It's good be sitting on the way.
Oh, it is not, oh, it is.
There was a problem.
Yeah, I noticed that. I let it up. So. So, let me just one, can I say that I'm reading me? Thank you very much. Oh, yeah. Did you see that? Yes. Okay. When they're reading me, if they do. Yeah. And how much in your time. And then just, and there's the young thing on. Like just get the red button here, but don't put that, you know. Okay? Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, before you can go to the restroom. I didn't finish. I feel like they didn't yard.
Birthday, Sarah.
Oh, but that's still a camera, I just snapped it. Thanks, Jim.
Facebook, so
Tricia, she was dealing about election commission, and she sent me an email and she goes, P.S. Some present, and I was like, no. Whatever, it's just not a big, hey, bye, good luck.
I saw your brother I didn't know that the brother, somebody. I was, back on.
No. All right, thanks, Jim. All right.
You're gonna do.
9:54.
Do I have a motion on the city manager's evaluation accepted as written?
I'll make a motion to accept the city manager's evaluation.
I have a second.
I'll second the motion.
I have a second. I have a motion from Ms. Walker. I have a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? I will call roll. Ms. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner, or Mr. Shields next.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Aye.
Or